And it's not going to let me go. Why is that? Hang on. We'll do it this way, because it seems to not like the other way around. So basically, what we've been talking about all day long is the growth of social networks and the opportunities for digital media, and to have that, sort of an understanding of how big is that market. And I think it's, when we look at who we're talking to and the kinds of businesses, both Hollywood as well as publishers and others, they're really seeing that there are tremendously large numbers of folks, over half of the US teen market, and over 56% of people who are online and logging in every day to social networks. We see the same thing when we look at digital video, that the volume of participants and how much they're uploading or how much they're viewing, those numbers are just increasing astronomically. And it's, again, a question for businesses. How are we going to be able to monetize this and make sense of it? So one of the things that we do at Reality Digital is help people think through what are the different reasons that you would actually develop a social networking or a contest or a user-generated capability. What are the different kinds of currency you're trying to build? And really to differentiate that at the beginning of a project. Understanding, is it really all about the money, or is it about building that buzz? Is it about the emotional capital that you're developing? It's important to know that ahead of time, because it's going to change what kind of initiative you actually implement. When we think of the rules of engagement and sort of what's new about this, and I was interested in sort of how this whole program got put together, it really had me think about the new rules of engagement, have us look at, thank you so much, appreciate that, creating a reason for connection, and that's what I was just mentioning a minute ago. Making sure that you understand what you're doing and why someone would come to your site to have this connection. Creating open communities where people have multiple opportunities. Not everybody is going to video. Not everybody's going to play a game or contribute to a contest. But you have to have some way that your consumers are more than just receiving a push of professional content. There has to be opportunity for that dialogue. And then most important, or at least as important, is tell the truth. So again, that reason for a connection, are you going to create a way for consumers to contribute? Is it going to be a way that you have, for example, reviews? And a lot of the customers that we're dealing with today, that's more and more important to them. It's about rating and comments. It's also about reviewing content. It's also about creating reviews of products, moving outside sort of an entertainment paradigm. So examples of that would be the site that we did through our API implementation for CBS with our Survivor show, where we allowed not just people to comment on the Cook Islands show, where there was a racial division for the teams at the upfront, but also then for CBS to take that content and use it in their marketing materials. Similarly, we provided an API implementation for their Hook Me Up site. And Hook Me Up is one where the reason for participation was, okay, these are the selected contestants, and you can go online and you can view cool content from all of them. But then you can also upload your own profile, your own information in an attempt to be selected. It sort of goes to that, talent agency kind of approach. If you create an open community and have multiple areas, you may have video and audio and image sharing on the site, but you may also have blogging capability. So if it's, for example, a community of interest, a couple of those in a minute, where people want to come back because it's something that's really important to them, they may want to have a blog. Doesn't mean they won't also have one on MySpace, but maybe specific to that interest or that brand, they want to have a blog-specific site. They want the ability to do ratings and reviews, as I mentioned, and to do mashups. So, for example, Addicting Clips, which was originally Atom Entertainment, now purchased by Viacom last year. Addicting Clips is a site where we run the whole thing. They've done a lot of interesting work with focused contests, for example, things that they've done with T-Mobile. In this particular case, this is a consumer-sponsored contest. There are a lot of ways that they've created for people to actually come back, not just to view content. This is a site that's actually not yet live, but it's for a film distributor, and you can see that they've made a decision to create film festivals and contests that both include consumer as well as professional content. Music Player is the gentleman that we saw at the beginning, Max Sidman, and what's interesting about what they're doing is it's a traditional publishing paradigm moved online, moved to a consumer community focus, so that you have musicians who, again, they may have blogs and other environments, but they're really focused on creating a space that's specific to their love of music, where they're going to be able to have either their band or whatever it is that's important to them. We have a lot of music teachers on this site as well. So telling the truth. This is this issue about you're not going to create buzz by going on to another mass aggregation site and lying about who you are and talking up a particular product or series. You're going to create cool content. You're going to make sure that if it is professionally produced, that you've identified it that way, and that you've monitored your site, and that you're truthful about how you're monitoring that site. I think in what we've heard from the end users that we have reached out to, they don't really mind if there's professionals or folks that are involved. What they mind is when they've been lied to. Nobody likes to be lied to. So if you're going to monitor content, hey, I'm only allowing this kind of content, don't just bury it in the terms and conditions. Be really upfront about it. Find ways to make that sort of integral so that it's a very well accepted part of your site. Example of that would be the Lonely Planet site that we have. This is the Lonely Planet TV site, sorry, which is just going live. It's in beta right now. It is a live beta. And what they've done is a really wonderful combination of the professionally produced Lonely Planet travel journals, as well as then reaching out to travelers to have them upload UGC. And they're very clear about their similarly, newbaby.com, again, a site that is one that is going live at the end of this month, where the entire focus for this community is new parents. So if you upload your coolest, garage band, indie film, whatever, it's not going to get on the site because it's not really of relevance to new parents. We talked a little bit, I've heard questions in the last panel as well around mitigating risks. This is especially important if you're a content producer. And the question that we would ask people is, really think about what you want to do in terms of mitigating that risk. You want things to be viral and you want to protect your brand, but so you have to find the balance between those two things. And to do that, Reality Digital with our Opus platform has developed a whole range of tools for business customers to help them moderate content, to help them be able to monitor the content, and to monetize the content. That was a lot of M's. I didn't even do that on purpose. Again, this is just an example of what you would see if you were logged in as an administrator on one of our sites. What we provide basically to customers and to marketing agencies and ad agencies is the opportunity to be the technical back end. We have a lot of creative people within our organization. Most of them are creative in the way that they build software. So we're not doing all the pretty front ends, and we're not necessarily helping our customers other than helping them think through the problem. We provide all the back end for the software, the pipes, the hosting of the content, the serving of the content. We have both an API implementation, which basically means we can provide you just with the want implemented in an existing site, or we can breathe the whole site for you as examples of music player and addicting clips. And because I think we have a lot of very intelligent people to join the panel here, I'm going to close with that. But thank you very much for your time.
For the newspaper or the publisher, however, and sometimes I barely speak for myself. We're going to jump. I'll give you some quick introductions. We don't have a lot of time. You've just met Cynthia Francis, who's the CEO of Reality Digital. Next to her is Gary Armstrong, who's the Chief Marketing Officer for Wenner Media, whom you know as the publisher of Us Weekly and Rolling Stone and Men's Journal. Next to him, we have Craig Fanning, who's Vice President of Interactive for Alloy Media and Marketing, which is a pioneer of non-traditional media and marketing programs connecting with targeted consumer segments with specific focus demographic. Maria Mandel is next to him. She's a partner and executive director at Digital Innovation at Ogilvy Interactive. Ogilvy's Digital Innovation Group is a collaboration between Ogilvy Interactive Worldwide and Neo at Ogilvy, the online media group for Ogilvy. And it looks for unique technologies and trends to help their clients make the most of every opportunity that digital media has to offer. And finally, last but not least, Ted Moon, Director of Digital Marketing for Sprint Nextel. All know what Sprint Nextel is, I hope. His team does both the traditional online advertising as well as learning, evaluating, and testing the different emerging new media tactics, including gaming, viral marketing, digital video recording, video on demand, social networks, and whatever else that you consider new media. In other words, any excuse that you have to play with something, you'll use it. I would like to start by asking each of you to talk about a successful buzz-generating done online and pay particular attention to the use of social media there. And Cynthia, I guess you've spent 8 minutes doing that, so we'll go ahead on to Gary if we could.
I think we do it every issue with Us Weekly. And an example would be, we have readers of the magazine that participate in this big social network called the internet. They don't necessarily stay in just one space called MySpace. start in a media site like a Gawker, and then they may go to a MySpace, and they may go to eOnline, and they may go on Us Online, and they may just pop all around. So what we do is we purposely sort of leak bits of information about an upcoming issue and tease a story just to build that frenzy. So luckily for us, you know, when we have Britney Spears who shaves her head, and you know, a supermodel who dies, and then the Oscar, we have huge...
So you know in advance when a supermodel is going to die? Amazing.
Knew, well, actually, what we did is we knew when she collapsed, and we had reporters down at the hospital. And
When that happens, do you know that 2 others will soon follow? Is that usually the rule?
I'm sorry?
Never mind.
Okay. But basically, we knew when things are happening, and we know what to anticipate with that. So we not only sort of seed a story, we seed information, and then we work with the fans' websites as well, all in anticipation of getting that issue. And then what it does is it drives traffic back to our own site. So it's really leveraging all the assets of web.
Okay, Craig, how about you? Tell us a success story.
One of my favorites would be probably America's Next Top Model that we did for 2 seasons ago. We reached out to the audience on Ally.com as well as its user base and said, how would you like to have 5 friends over to watch the preview of the new show? And it was the first time we actually got involved in such an entity. A little worried about the response rates because we were going to ask 500 girls to invite 5 friends over. They had to document it. We were giving them digital cameras. They had to, you know, we gave them party favors and everything else, but they had to really come back to us and say they actually did this and had these friends over. We put a website up to recruit users, and we gave about 3.5 weeks to hopefully please get these 500 responses of qualified girls, and I think we shut the website down in about 13 hours. And it's just, it was almost pure luck, but it was just dead on to an audience that obviously going to be passionate about this.
And is this driven by the popularity of the show, or was it the concept that was so compelling?
I think it was the concept, because in that one they were actually trying to get us to find more teen girls and actually get more buzz about teen girl viewership for the program.
Huh. Maria, how about you?
I'm going to have to go with the Dove Campaign for Real Beauty, which is a campaign that generated a lot of spontaneous buzz this year. We posted a video that we created, a self-esteem workshop for teenage girls, and we posted it on YouTube. And to date, it's gotten over 200 million views.
Wow.
So it was more successful than our Super Bowl spot was for Dove a year ago. And it generated a lot of spontaneous buzz around the brand, and we followed up with that with actually encouraging people to submit their own Dove commercials that they created, and we ran that during the Academy Awards.
But there was also a lot of traditional associated with that campaign. If I'm remembering correctly, you had bus stops and the sides of buses and things like that too, right?
For the promotion where we had people submit their own videos, that was a cross-media campaign supported by a lot of traditional media. But a lot of the things that we're doing in terms of viral generated videos have no advertising support at all. In fact, the video that generated all of those views on YouTube had absolutely no advertising support against it.
Wow. Ted, you have to compete. You hear me now, guys. So
yeah, I don't know if we can compete with that many views, quite frankly, but I think one of the things that we've been using it in a couple of different senses in terms of a very strategic type of campaign that we would have for a major launch, as well as at a tactical level for different kind of phone launches that we've had. And I think the one that comes to mind, I think, is when we first merged back in '05, we also a new product, and it was the Sprint PowerView and the PowerVision, and really had elaborate content, live TV, all of that on our phones, and it was a great way of just entertaining yourself, and that was kind of the theme that we were going with. And in doing so, we created this interactive game that we seeded without any kind of branding on there. One of them was, we were still trying to figure out the branding, I think, we put that out there, and it was a guy in the back seat of a taxi cab, and you can kind of manipulate him to kind of go forward. You can have the cab go fast, go left, go right, and it would kind of shake the guy around, and a lot of fun with it, especially if you like seeing people crash into things, and generated a great deal of buzz from what was this all about type of thing, and it was really to say, you want a better way to entertain yourself. look for, here's something that's coming down the road, and that was the Sprint Power Vision. And overall, the product has been great, and I know that it was a great introduction to the product, great viral component to it, as well as engagement there. And I promised our PR guys I wouldn't actually share the numbers, but it was critical in a successful launch of the new branded company, but also specifically the Power.
And how did you seed that? Who were the users that you were counting on to actually get the buzz going? Yeah,
it's interesting that you, at the time our agency, Organic in San Francisco, was asking us, well, here is the media plan. They showed the media plan of where they would seed this. And 3/4 of the sites I couldn't actually open while I was using the company line. So I had to actually go home and view a lot of those sites. And we kind of took some risk in going into sites that were, I mean, they were very good sites. I think they were so ahead of its time in the sense that it even beat our IT guys, and they thought it was bad content sites. And it's like, we look at it now, and it's probably all pretty normal. But at the time, I think it was that I think new, and I think it was also taking some risks in terms of areas that we had never been on before from a advertising standpoint.
Maria, in the Dove campaign, what do you think was the most effective way that got the word out to get the people to participate at the beginning?
I think it was interesting because I think if you go back to the beginning of the campaign for Real Beauty, it was really that it hit a nerve. It was really about how do you really connect with an issue that's going to make people passionate and get people to react to it. So when we launched the Evolution video, which we didn't know whether it was going to take off or not when we placed it on YouTube, and immediately I started getting emails from friends that live in Brazil and that live in Italy, and they were saying, oh my God, did you do this video? Is your agency responsible for it? It really connected on a level, and it wasn't necessarily the typical type of video that takes off on YouTube. It wasn't extreme or racy, but it...
Or Viacom.
Or what?
Or Viacom.
But it connected on an issue that got people to feel very passionate about it, and then it took off from there because a lot of consumers started creating their own versions, like Slob Evolution and others that were really funny, but it was all in homage to this concept that we first posted out there. And everything that we've done since then, including the different promotional events and different traditional advertising components, all really work off of that insight.
Mm-hmm. And Craig, what about you? How did you seed the promotion? How did you get people to be aware of the fact that you were setting up these parties and giving away the cameras?
We have an insiders group which we use, and these are kids which will work on behalf of the company, even though they're really not paid. It can be anything from alloy merchandise that we'll give them on propagating brand messaging, even to the point of, for the real heavy users, getting a boilerplate statement that they can use on their college exams, their college applications, to say, I've worked for this, sort of in a grill of a major marketing firm.
Mm-hmm. So it's sort of like a street team for a record
way,
company.
But an online one.
Yeah. All right, this is the less comfortable question. I'd like each of you to talk about something that you've done that really hasn't worked and let people here learn from your mistakes. So, Cynthia?
Sure. I think that we've launched a site that we had really hoped was going to be able to work very well for the youth market, and it was for a company that's actually not affiliated directly with Nike, but that gets a tremendous amount of support from Nike and does have an existing online community for youth athletes. And they wanted to do, they actually have a very successful site that we've been running for them, but they had wanted to do some campaigns and to tie in sponsorship. And again, I think that they kind of broke the rule a little bit around telling the truth that this was going to be kind of seeded content in this very open user environment. And so all of a sudden there was this really cool video that ostensibly was coming in from, an unknown, and it was, it's a small community. It's very easy to tell, wow, that has really high production values. That really doesn't look like a youth cross-country meet. That looks like it was not shot by somebody's father. It was shot by somebody who really knew what they were doing. And did it hit all the presses? Was it as bad as the GM? No, it didn't. But it was a great learning experience because so quick that the kids caught on?
Gary?
We recently launched a channel with VO
Okay.
for Us Weekly. And one of the first things we did is our editors came up with this idea to win a date with Brody Jenner, who's on MTV's The Hills. He's a young, hot thing around town. I hope he's not here. They thought, we'll do a win a date with Brody Jenner promotion, and then consumers can send in their video on why they should go on the date with Brody Jenner. And that was great, and we had the whole thing planned. And then on the video shoot, his agent was there and said, oh, he just signed a deal with Scope. And so our business side people said, oh, we'll do a partnership with Scope and sell them ads all around this. Again, makes sense. Scope, you think it'd be great. What happened was we started putting these little vignettes of Brody talking about his favorite body part and what he likes on a date, and there was Scope ads all around it. And immediately people started commenting, this is an advertorial, this is fake, he's being both. And so what we thought was a very smart business opportunity, even though it was led by editorial, the consumers immediately just said, this is wrong, this is not right. And so we had to change the creative on the ads and get the agency to change the creative as well.
I tell you, it's so often true that the editor's ideas are terrible.
Yeah.
Craig?
This is going to sound like it really worked, but it didn't. We own a site called Delia's, and it's also a catalog. And we also own another site called Skonex, which is an urban social networking site. And we formed a partnership with Elite Modeling, and we were going to search for the next Delia's model. So we sent out this message. It was on the Delia's catalog. It was to go to skonex.com, which again, beforehand was a largely urban site, to see if you would like to apply to become the next model. And it was a lengthy process, and I'd say about 4,000 girls submitted. They had to go get professional headshots and complete an application process. But then we had this community of about 30,000 people, and they were rooting for certain girls. American Idol night. But we were honest with the community that the Delia's folks were actually going to pick the 3 finalists and the winner. So after all was said and done, there's this beautiful community going on. Even though it was almost 2 different cultures, there was support for one another. And Delia's went ahead and chose 3 pearly white finalists. Oh. 3 absolute Barbies, and there was revolt within the community. And we had to actually go out and apologize to all of Skonex and make a formal announcement about it.
Ooh. Maria?
All right, without naming any specific campaign, of course, I think generally we've learned 2 major things. One, the rule of build it, then they shall come doesn't really exist. And there have been times when we've had clients that have spent a tremendous amount of money in creating a piece of content or creating a site and not really investing in building that viral buzz and building that excitement around that content. The Dove evolution is more of an exception. That's 1 in a million type of hits that you get. But for the most part, you really have to invest in generating buzz and generating excitement around a piece of content. The second lesson I think we've learned is transparency. And I think in the early days of this space, we went out there and may not have been as honest as we should have been with consumers. And I think we've learned that how quickly a backlash can erupt as a part of that. So I think we've learned that it's really important to be very straightforward and really build relationships with consumers to help them generate buzz for us versus going out there and seeding it in inappropriate ways.
Ted?
John, when you emailed me this question last week, I was thinking about, what things we could have done better. And, quite frankly, I don't know if we've had any major misses. And I don't really mean that in a good way. And I really don't mean that as a badge of honor. In fact, to say that everything went pretty well isn't that it wasn't because we were so good. We weren't the '72 Miami Dolphins. We weren't perfect that way. What happened was that I think that it's because we actually maybe didn't take enough risks in there, and we didn't go far enough. And we're a pretty conservative company. And in doing so, I've had a couple of projects kind of aborted at the last minute there because at some point somebody has really gets very nervous and I think internally we just can't let it out. And I think one of the things that I've been trying to talk about internally has been about needing to take some risks and really having the stomach do some of these things. And if you're batting 1,000, it's not a good thing. It's because you're really not taking enough risk. You should be batting much, much, much lower, like a real batting average. And I think that, and I think to what Maria said is that you have one of those big hits there, it'll make up for all the misses that you had. And I think that that's kind of where I would like our company to go, because a lot of the other things that we've done to create buzz, like I talked about for specific products, specific hand as reasonably well. But I think it's because we set the bar a little bit too low, in my opinion.
Several of you have talked about honesty, the need to tell the truth, transparency, things like that. But what about stealth? What if you're trying to have some sort of mystery or intrigue about what you're promoting? Is that not a value that's worth anything at all online? Is that unrelentingly negative? Is there a way to pull that off? Anybody?
I think you can pull it off as long as you give them value. And as long as the consumer thinks they're getting something out of this. They don't mind watching a trailer for a movie if the movie is an appropriate movie for them. I would never show the trailer for 300 on Us Magazine's website because it's not going to be right for them. But they'll even sit through a trailer for a shitty Cameron Diaz movie if they think it's a good date movie and it's something to do that night. The paid me to show that, but as long as it's on target and appropriate, and they think I can go out on a date with this movie tonight.
Anybody else want to try stealth? I mean, let's look at Lonely Girl, 15, 16. There was a campaign that was arguably dishonest, but it worked like gangbusters for that actress, right? So, and I don't think it necessarily has hurt the agency. So aren't there some instances where it's perfectly fine not to say who you are?
I think it's kind of like the Dove campaign. You don't know ahead of time what the audience reaction is going to be. So it's a calculated risk. You have to be willing, if I were talking to one of our customers and they were saying, well, we want to do this great campaign and we don't want to tell anybody that it's professional content, yeah, it's a calculated risk. If you want to go that route, you better know, again, to that question of what kind of capital are you actually trying to generate. If you're trying to identify with the brand and enhance a brand, that's kind of a tricky one. If you want to promote an actress and it's an individual or it's a smaller kind of, it's edgy, it's entertainment as opposed to sort of brand or marketing identified, yeah, you could probably get away with it, or at least you're willing to take the risk.
One thing for us is that if we were to go into that stealth mode there, the hardest part about doing that as a corporate advertiser, I think, is getting that through internally and getting that approved. We're the title sponsor for NASCAR with Nextel. If you've ever been to a Nextel race, you can't go anywhere without seeing Nextel branding on there. That's kind of the background that we come from. So to have something that's unbranded that we're paying money for to go out and have running in there, that's a really tough sell. And there's going to be a lot of nervous people that, again, I talked about kind of pulling the plug sometimes. Kind of that and proving out a business case to go and do something like that, I think that's probably the reason why we would go, not because we don't have the creative aptitude at our agencies or not because there is any creative ideas that are coming out. I think it's really because of that, because we expect to get something directly out of the investment, and that's a leap of faith that people have to take.
And just to add to that, I think difference between a teaser campaign and a deceptive campaign. And I think when you're dealing with a brand and you're dealing with companies, I think it's very appropriate if you can generate interest and buzz by teasing people and then paying it off. But it's very different if somebody feels that they've been lied to or betrayed, and that's not a feeling you want to leave consumers with.
I can imagine that's a very tough line to draw for some things.
I think if you, has everyone here seen the Seagram's vodka campaign for the East Coast white rappers? Rappers and how they kick it in the East Coast. A real funny video, and please check it out on YouTube if you haven't seen it. But that was done because so many people said that to me that were right in that demographic. It was a perfect campaign, but it was because it was great creative. It wasn't so. To Ted's point about managing expectations, there's a lot of seeded videos on YouTube right now that aren't getting that play.
I think you mean the Smirnoff campaign, right?
Sorry. I apologize.
Make sure the right brand gets credit.
Yeah, so let's rethink about how effective that was.
That's exactly the reaction that, that people are nervous about.
It's a tea party, by the way. That's what it's called. It's very funny.
Has anybody in the audience seen the new Scion campaign? Because I'll bring it up if you have. If it's a sea of blank faces, we won't go there. All right, well, there's another campaign that's worth trying to find on the internet. I challenge you to find it. It's very interesting and very obscure. So let me ask the question generally. Dealing with something that you're trying to sell, a concept, a brand, a product, a service, are the rules the same in a buzz campaign as they are in, say, a TV advertising campaign in which you want people to understand what you're selling? Or not?
Well, I think, we hit on the problem right here, in that when you're doing a buzz campaign, you're in the danger of selling the category as opposed to the specific brand, and that's the whole Energizer versus Duracell, which is the bunny, I never remember. I remember the bunny.
Yes.
So I'd probably remember this campaign and which brand of vodka is it? So I think it really depends on what your goal is. If you're trying to change perception of the benefits of that category, and then there is the payoff on a brand platform, that's okay.
But then you have other campaigns like Philips Norelco with ShaveEverywhere.com, if you check it out. I mean, that had immediate payoff in sales to that brand, and Genius campaign, or the current PC Mac ads that are TV ads that have gone viral just by the nature of the creative. So I think in the end what it comes down to, it's about entertainment. And if you're using a buzz campaign to generate excitement around a brand, and it's a brand, I think you have to make sure that whatever you're coming up with from a creative standpoint is true to that brand and is aligned with what that brand stands for. So it's not just about creating something that's funny that gets spread around. It's about what's the message you want to convey, and how do you convey that in a way that isn't just about the brand itself, that it actually entertains people and gets people interested.
Can you mount an effective and authentic buzz campaign without ceding a certain degree of control, a critical degree of control, to the users? And if you have to do that, how problematic is that to your clients, to the brand?
That's one of the big questions we get asked is, well, how much control do I have to give up, and how do I manage the content that comes in? And I think, I sort of said it earlier, it's really important to know ahead of time what that line is going to be. So, for example, if you're screening content and you're saying we're only going to take, we're going to open the doors and we're going to create this mashup opportunity, and you can upload some of your own video and then mash it up with our content. You have to have a very clear line for your screeners about what content are you not going to allow. It's really easy when you say, well, we wouldn't allow pornography. Okay, that's great, but is a wet t-shirt pornography, or is that, where does it fall in the line? And that's all about what demographic are you trying to reach. So if it's new moms, yeah, wet t-shirt probably not really a great idea, but, if it's addicting clips, heck, go for it. So it's again, sort of understanding how you're going to screen that content, and also what are you going to do if it's a blog environment. The doors have to be much broader than if it's a video environment, just because of the video action as opposed to reading text. And so there's a lot of different things that come into play.
I also think that we're focusing on what's put out there as opposed to what's taken away from there. And you can create buzz by not giving people anything. You can put something out there, then pull it back, and everybody will be talking about it. You can create buzz. Hell, Time does it every year with who's going to be on the Man of the Year. That builds buzz for their product. They put fake covers out there. They tell certain reporters they're thinking of certain people. More anticipation for that cover. And that's a great way of harnessing everybody's anxiety towards what are they going to do. It's a buzz campaign.
Okay. My Second Life and virtual environments generally. How do y'all feel about those environments? Is it a good place to be, a mandatory place to be? What?
Well, yeah, for Second Life, obviously, they should take all the credit. They created this incredible experience, especially from the user side. But from an advertising standpoint, you may want to look at some other sites like MTV's Virtual Laguna Beach, Habbo Hotel, which they're in about 17 countries, but they also have a U.S. site. And those sites actually have a really great model. It's very turnkey for advertisers, as opposed to maybe Second Life, which is a little more freeform. Whereas Habbo, Virtual Laguna Beach are just perfect for brand placement, product placement, live events. What I love about when we work with Habbo is that if you look at a website and you have a sponsorship, you hope the user takes action, hope they see this sponsor and click to it. Whereas on Habbo, it's a live event. There are 10,000 people in the website in the evening, and you tell them to do something.
I think it depends on what audience you're looking to reach, because some of these examples I think are great examples of reaching a younger teen audience, but a lot of brands that we work with, for example, the IBMs, the Ciscos of the world, they're looking at a very different audience. And Second Life, one of the interesting things and why there's so much buzz right now around Second Life is it's one of the only virtual environments that is actually targeting an audience that mirrors the US Census audience. And we actually just recently launched a campaign for IBM on Second Life. IBM's very active within the Second Life community. But what we found, the most effective way to use a virtual environment is not necessarily to drive people into that environment. It's really to understand what people are doing within environment and create something that would be of interest and would engage them. I think one of the major missteps that a lot of brands that are starting to get involved in virtual communities are making is that they're either taking their real world environments and trying to recreate them within these virtual environments, or they're going in there and trying to create blatant advertising platforms. And that's not the best way to engage that audience. It's really about understanding, and you can go to the outside world through blogs, and a lot of people talk about these virtual worlds, and you can really figure out what's going to be meaningful to them and then just try things out. But I think, in my opinion, I think one of the interesting things about these virtual environments, I think it's that next evolution. I think it's I heard the term earlier today, it's the Web 3.0. I think it's the next big thing. It's not there yet. It's still very small compared to the amount of buzz that is generating around it. Second Life today only has about 3 million downloaded clients and only about 1.2 active members. And less so. But it's generating so much attention right now because here you see more of a mass type of audience starting to engage in this environment.
Can you want to cite any specific examples of stuff that you've done?
Recently we just launched something called Code Station for IBM, and it's targeting a developer community. And so what we went in is we found that a lot of developers, software developers, are in this community. Because
they don't have a life, so they need a virtual non-life?
See, this is the misperception. Probably you're going to go back to your hotel room and get on Second Life after this. But what we found was that these developers really wanted to be challenged, so we created this labyrinth that they could go through, and there are things like bugs that they would have to circumvent, and there's a leaderboard, and they can compete against other developers, and they could go in and get a library of code that we've created, but they could also upload and create their own code. In the end, it's really about figuring out what's of interest to these software developers and creating these tools and these will engage them. So that's what we just launched, and from the comments that have been made in the blogs right now, it's already generating some excitement and some buzz in the marketplace.
And ultimately, what does IBM want to get out of that? Just simply buying goodwill for their brand? Is that the idea?
It's really about reaching a very targeted audience, and not to use an overused term, but it's really about engagement. The long-term engagement that this developer community is going to have with that IBM when they visit this Code Station island. To put a value on that, it's very hard at the moment, and that's part of the challenge with these new and emerging spaces. But through this program, they're building a long-term engagement with an audience that's very hard to reach today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would agree with that. And I'll add that one of the really nice things I think that we've seen so far with those guys is that there's a degree of flexibility, because it is a virtual world and it doesn't have to recreate reality. We've had sponsorship areas in two of the top gaming areas with Madden 07 and NASCAR 07 to support our sports sponsorships. You know, their thing, and all due respect to them, they're great partners. They talk about if it's in the game, it's in the game. So any kind of sponsorship kind of and it has to really be about the game, and it puts you in a much smaller box that you can play in, and that's one of the things I think about these reality games of real reality, like an NFL game or NASCAR race. And then you look at Second Life, and you can do a lot more things in there because you can just make it up. And as an advertiser, I think it's an interesting space to Also, I think it's to kind of, I think to the previous point, is to monitor and even kind of look at, what are the things that maybe we don't provide right now that people would want. And this is an interesting kind of, lab experiment for us. And that's kind of, I think, the value of an area like that.
Well, it's also, I think you raise a great point, which is that trying to understand when is it appropriate to put great content on a YouTube or a MySpace and have mass market kind of approach, or where is it we've created this environment that's specific to NASCAR, and people are coming there because they already have an affinity for that brand, they're already part of that community, and that's really sort of a very early step that you have to kind of assess, is which is going to be most appropriate for what kind of engagement I want to create.
Aside from MySpace, what are the places in the social networking world where you feel like you have to be for a product to generate buzz? Are there places that are mandatory, or does it really vary so much from product to product, service to service?
I think college students still, Facebook owns it, even though they've opened up the market. I mean, if you're trying for broad reach against this, the millennials are 12 to 24, 15 to 34, it's still MySpace, but if you're looking for a niche market, there's certainly others out there. I mean, Teen Girls, Pixo, Tackle, which is all high school sports, and who was it? Tampax just did a pretty cool sponsorship live right now. We did something with Skonex, a 500,000 unique users site, and we did a Dreamgirls group, about 27,000 users signed up for that, and I think MySpace had 4,000 users. So
wow.
It's about finding these niche social networks, and there'll be more of them.
Yeah. How about if your demographic that you're trying to reach is over 50 years old?
Well, there's a site called Vox, which is run actually by LiveSpace, by LiveJournal, and there's a couple of others that are out there. Vox is the one I'm most familiar with. Yeah.
Okay. I'd like to open it up for questions from the audience, too. I have a couple of others myself, but if somebody has something that they'd like to ask, please get the attention of the gentleman with the microphone and get my attention and fire away.
That's a popsicle. That's not a microphone.
Let me, the gentleman with the popsicle. Let me ask you about copyrights. As you get into things where your users engaged, do you have to worry about their copyrights, the things that they create? And if so, what do you do about that?
Well, the place where I've seen this the most is that if you have someone who's created a cool skit and they have a song playing in the background. I mean, the question that I got asked actually on the last panel I was on was how many times has Happy Birthday, how many clips do we have on our own site, Clipshow, that of people singing Happy Birthday, and what do we think about the copyright issues around that song? To which I said, I really don't think somebody's going to come after somebody for having the film of their 2-year-old's birthday party up there. On the other hand, there is a line that gets crossed, and really it's about how much viral adoption is there. If you've got a really cool piece of content that happens to have, in particular, music in the background, there are rights associated with that. In terms of if someone has created content of themselves or friends and then they've uploaded that, do there need to be releases, for example, if then you want to attach that, embed it in your own blog or distribute it more? And I think the rules of the internet right now there are no rules around that. It's really when there are copyright holders that have clearly identified rights to that content.
So there are laws but no rules?
Yeah, I would say that there are laws, and there are laws that, copyright laws are to be taken very seriously, but when someone has put something up there and not used something like Creative Commons and said that they're attaching their own right to this or actually patented it or trademarked it or something, then viral distribution seems to be fair game.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a lawyer by any stretch, but on all of our sites we have terms of use, and anybody who submits something, we assume that they are following them. If we have any complaints, we take them down, but at the end of the day, it's editorial content. So there's a fair use issue there as well. And not only are we providing commentary on it, our editors are, but also the users are as well. So as long as that piece that's up there is providing content and there's sufficient use of it, and it's not our main source of revenue the way a potential YouTube is, I think we're covered.
Yeah. Craig, how about you? You've got some sites where this is probably an issue for you.
Kind of the same. All editorial sites and the community sites, same thing. As long as we're not taking that and making money off of what the users are providing.
Right.
Questions from the audience? Way back in the back. We have a gentleman back. waving his hand. Could we get that? Okay. Do we have an extra popsicle around? All right, back in the back, all the way back in the back. Gentleman in the blue.
It's like the office.
Thank you for the popsicle. Hi, my name is Mark Friedler. I'm a publisher of a gaming website called Game Daily. We're now part of AOL.
Hold on just a second. We're going to raise your amplification so we can hear you. Can we give this guy a little bit more volume?
So, hello. Hear me now?
Or a little bit more treble, maybe?
Hello.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Gotcha.
Yeah, baby.
All right, thank you.
All right, hi, my name is Mark Friedler. I'm a publisher of a video gaming site called Game Daily. We're now part of AOL. And I have a question for you guys in general about user-generated content. Well, first, an observation. It seems like a critical component of user-generated content is voyeurism, or self-voyeurism, kind of like, the girl who wrote her diary and wants the whole world to see, number one. Number two, in the gaming space, there's an area of content that's really popular right now, a lot of you may be aware of, called machinima, where people use the game engine and take the characters and riff off of them. A lot of times they do crazy, inappropriate, even pornographic things with the characters that belong to the games, but the game developers and publishers have embraced that because it's kind of good for the game. And you've seen some people riffing on ads and thinking about the Super Bowl, the Doritos ads, that sort of thing. Question really is like where social media and user-generated content are going to create new rules. I mean, will brand owners allow people to do something like machinima to do a mashup of a commercial? And whose content does that become at the end of the day? And what happens when someone like Rever starts monetizing that new person's content? Who gets the money? Does the agency that made the GM ad, or is it the kid in Omaha who mashed it up?
Well, you've been called out, so
I couldn't hear the first part of the question. Was it about voyeurism?
Well, he suggested that as a premise that one important part of, or one important ingredient in buzz is having a voyeuristic element.
I would challenge that, and I think at least in the realm of Us Weekly, the buzz is more about social empowerment. And when we put clips online or put a piece of information or a photo, people want to be able to say, I saw that clip, I saw Rosie bitch slap somebody on The View, I saw this really bad clip from American Idol, even though they be able to say they saw it, and then they can tell their friend, oh, did you see that really weird guy in American Idol? In terms of who owns it, I think the ownership component is really who has it at that moment, right now, because you can't be mashing something up and then putting it on my site and assuming you're still owning it when it's on my site. You've consciously put it up there. It's not like I went to your site and took a bit of it and mashed it up on.
From the agency point of view, we're dealing with significant issues right now around DRM, and I mean, it's difficult enough just negotiating usage rights for all the new platforms, whether it's online or mobile or et cetera, and then when you have the ability to modify that content, change it around, give consumers the ability to mash it up, that opens up a whole slew of new issues. It's one of the most challenging times, I think, and in fact I should probably have gone into copyright entertainment law instead of going to advertising, because I think that's going to be a key challenge that those lawyers are going to be dealing with.
It's not too late. There probably will still be demand 4 years from now for more copyright lawyers.
I don't know if I could deal with law school.
Yeah, I think also not just with user-generated content, but original content that companies will use, and in conjunction with agencies, and kind of looking at even things like residual rights and how that works. And current contracts with most corporate advertisers and their agencies probably, I'm going to venture a guess, don't have that provision in there because they haven't gone in that space yet. And when they go into the first foray into this, and you may have already signed up talent, you may gone, 9/10 of the way, and then you're going to get a call from the lawyer, and you're going to have to work that out. And I think that it changes the kind of the relationship a little bit with the agencies, in that they are now, everybody, at least good client at least, would call their agencies their partners, right? I mean, that's truly going to be in the real sense of the word, and not just lip service, I think, going forward, as original content gets made for these types of efforts.
Mm-hmm. Residuals is a really good point. I think that's what the next actors or writers strike is going to be about. Right. We're out of time. Thanks very much to the audience for staying with us this whole time, and to our panelists. Thank you all.